Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Organic Sanskrit, Series 1, Class 2. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope everyone is well. How are we doing today? Good. Put some ones in the chat if you're good. Somebody put a 2. No, that was your number. Great. Okay, are there any questions from last week? Open your mics and speak if you have a question. If not, don't hesitate to open your mic and ask a question during the class. Okay. So today we're going to have a class called The Long and the Short of It. And I'm going to try to speak slowly to help the poor translators because it's difficult enough to translate a grammar class without the teacher speaking really fast. So let's find out what the long and the short of Sanskrit is. Who remembers what kind of language Sanskrit is? Anyone has an answer? Open your mic.
Phonetic?
Yes, but more specifically, what about phonetics? Ancient? True. A very important thing about Sanskrit is it's a sound-based language, and that can be the meaning of phonetic. Phonos is sound or ear sound in Greek. So a sound-based language is one in which the language is actually written differently depending on how combined words, letters, and not meanings, but words and letters sound. So we'll learn more about that as we go on. Can I have the first slide past the title slide, Marina? Next one. Yes. So who remembers what this letter is? Anyone? Julia said A, right? Somebody is speaking, but I'm not hearing you well. Say more loudly.
Uh,
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 ah.
uh.
Perfect language, perfect sound. This is the sound in Sanskrit, and it is the first letter. An important thing to remember as we learn in this course about pronouncing Sanskrit is that the letters are very different from most languages. So it's really important to learn the sounds and connect them with the Sanskrit letters. Do not try to think of your own language and say, oh, this letter is like such and such a letter in my language, because you will likely get in trouble down the road if you do that. So it's very wonderful that everyone who answered said, this letter is because that's what it is. Now, how many vowels are there? Does anyone remember? 16. Correct. And who remembers the vowel alphabet song? Does anybody want to sing it to us? This is a hard question. All right, let's sing it together. Can I have the next slide, please? Oh, not yet. Let's go back one. All right, I guess I didn't write it down. So it's going to be sound-based. No, go back to the letter That's correct. The letter right there. So since it's a sound-based language, we're going to memorize this with our ears and not with our eyes. So I'll sing it first, and please forgive me because I can't sing. So here we go. If one of you is a good singer and wants to learn this alphabet song so we can sing it together following you, I would be very happy. So think about that. For the meantime, here we go. I'll sing it first. I, u, lir, lir. A, I, O, ow, Okay, so let's sing it together now, and I'll stop after 4 or 5 letters, maybe 2 letters. Well, we'll sing the first vowels all together. I, u. Sing with me. Open your mics. I,
I,
Good.
R, R.
Gang, you're going too fast. But you remember it. And it's not ra, it's because it's a vowel. R, R,
R, R,
yes.
Li,
Everybody together. R, R,
R, R,
Good. Good. Now the last chunk of letters. A, I, O, ow,
M,
A, I, O, ow, Good. One more time. A, I, O, ow, All right, now one time, all the letters. So sing along with me and try to memorize it like a song. Uh, E, U, R, R, lir, lir. A, I, O, ow. Good. Very good. So let's go to the next slide now. All right, let's remember the Sanskrit mouth positions. So position 1, and these you will remember are called in Sanskrit vargas, which means class or group, because it's a class or group of sounds, how you pronounce that group of sounds. So the first mouth position, way back in the back of your mouth, at the top of your throat, is position 1, guttural. So in this position, you fold your tongue in half and stuff it all the way back in the back of your mouth. So let's do that. Let's use the letter K. We'll say Ka, Ka. Everybody say Ka. Speak to me. Ka.
Ka,
Good.
Ka.
Do you feel, you can almost feel the vibration here in your throat when you say it properly. ka, ka.
Ka.
Experiment. Good. Now, position 2 is the palatal position. Now, here you fold your tongue back and put the tip of it against that bump in the back of your mouth up top. So we'll say cha, we'll say the letter cha, putting your tongue in the palatal position. Tra, tra,
Tra.
tra, tra. Good. And the third position, which some people call retroflex, but I like to call cerebral, is where you put your tongue straight up on the top of your roof of your mouth into your brain, cerebral. So we'll say the letter ka. Say the letter with the tip of your tongue on the top of your roof of your mouth. Ka.
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 Ka. Ka. Good. The fourth position is the one that's most like many Western languages, and that is the dental position. You're going to put the tip of your tongue against the back of your front teeth, and we'll use the letter T, and it's very much like English. So T, T. Good. Good. And for the labial position, it's your mouth, your lips that you use for these letters to make these sounds. And we'll use the letter P. So let's say P. Put your lips together and say P. Very good. Good. Let's have the next slide. So here's where the long and the short of it comes in. Now, anybody that's a musician, which I am not, so correct me if I make any mistakes, you know that a whole note is, I believe it's 4 beats. So a half note, which is that second design there, the third design, sorry, is 2 beats, and a quarter note is 1 beat. Now, in Sanskrit, we don't have any whole notes. However, the whole language is made up of half notes and quarter notes. And this is, in a way, why we call Sanskrit sound-based, because it doesn't go up and down like many Western languages. And I apologize, I'm not sure about Chinese or Vietnamese. I know those are tonal, but I don't know anything about how that works. But in Western languages, we emphasize up and down. In Sanskrit, we don't. We just emphasize long or short. Let's go to the next slide. So I think I put these in the wrong order, but we're only going to be working with quarter notes and half notes, which is 1 beat for a quarter note, 2 beats for a half note. So next slide. Now, this is more like a jagged graph of how a language like English sounds. So there's emphasized syllables in any given word and in any given sentence. So, for instance, you might say this English sentence: when I was over at your house, when I was over at your house. So we go sort of vertically up and down with the language sound. But we don't do that in Sanskrit. Next slide. Sanskrit is more like singing when you use long and short notes to express a song. Short is 1 beat, long is 2 beats. It's not so much about accented words. Sanskrit words don't really have accents the way many European Western languages have accents. Often a long vowel can sound as though it's accented, but really, technically, it's just held. So here there's 2 versions of this letter. So let's try and sound this. Now, the one on the top left is a short We just saw that earlier in this class. The one on the right is a long What's the difference in the way they're written? Who can tell me? Don't be afraid. Open your mic. You see, this is like when you go to kindergarten, you learn what's the difference between these 2 shapes on the top there. Are they the same?
Well, one has 2 lines going down.
Yes. The second one has 2 lines on the right. The first one only has 1. So the first one is a short it has 1 line. And the way you mark it as long in Sanskrit is you put a second stroke down to the right. So let me say these for you using our musical notation system. So I have a little Indian drum here. So I'm going to use that to illustrate long and short. So an is 1 beat, uh. But a long A, or is 2 beats. So So everybody try and say the short and then the long. Open your mics and say exaggerated. Yeah. Good. More yeah. Good. Very good. That's excellent. And one good example I like to use is one of our favorite words in our tradition, which is vajra. It's not vajra, it's vajra. Everybody say vajra.
Vajra.
Vajra. Vajra.
Vajra. You hear that difference? Vajra. And yes, vajra. Vajra. Those are 2 short U's. So we'll see that later. But right now, while we're at it, does everybody have some paper and maybe a pen or a pencil or a crayon handy? Take a minute and see if you can find something to write on. And then we're just going to take a moment and write these 2 letters. Now, I don't know if you can see the arrows in this graphic. Are they visible to you? Are they big enough to see?
Yes, can see.
Okay, thank you. We did one of these last week, but you can see the way the strokes are marked and the order they're marked in, and which ones you do first, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So let's take 2 or 3 minutes and please practice drawing the and the Give 2 minutes. I'll time it. Yes, and I should have mentioned do it several times, as many times as you can during this couple of minutes. Okay, how did that go? How did that feel? Anybody have a question? So practice makes perfect. Anytime in the next week that you're doodling, you might feel like you want to just doodle the and the just to get a sense of it. So one of the things we want to do in organic Sanskrit is to give everybody a sense of and a feel for Devanagari. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So we just learned that pronouncing Sanskrit is more like singing. So we're not going to focus on accenting words, but rather on which syllables are long and which syllables are short. So here I drew some colored lines under this word so you can see where you're going to hold the four syllables in this word. So here we go. I'm going to use the drum and we're going to go ma ha ya na. Say it along with me. Ma ha ya na. Ma ha ma ha
Yeah.
ya.
Nah.
Good. Okay, so you see, we're not going to say Mahayana or Mahayana or anything. We're going to say Mahayana. So it is more like singing, right? And when we're learning, please, I encourage us, let's exaggerate the long syllables a little bit because it's not something we usually do in most of our languages. Sugeng, who knows many languages, can correct me if I say that this is the only language where we hold syllables for a long time. What do you think, Sugeng?
I think so. Pali too, right?
Well,
Pali language.
does Pali sort of, does it take some from Sanskrit? Yeah, so it has a Sanskrit quality. And Yulia says Finnish. See, this is interesting. Okay, I think Finnish is Indo-European, correct? So it may have some, it has like a sing-song quality. All right. Let's see. We're going to learn the right way to say words. And you may notice in some classes that are taught including some mixed nuts classes. When Sanskrit is pronounced, it's sometimes not pronounced correctly. So we have to be very sensitive and not embarrass people by correcting them. But the students in this class will know whether it's correctly pronounced or not correctly pronounced. Okay. Now, I've written underneath the colored lines what this word looks like in Devanagari. So as we recall, the top writing of the word Mahayana is Ayast, the International Alphabet of Sanskrit Transliteration, which puts Sanskrit in Roman characters. And the bottom writing of the word is Devanagari, which is the typical script that Sanskrit has been written in for, give or take 1,000 years. There are other scripts, but we won't worry about those. Now, what does this word mean? Anybody know? Mahayana.
The big vehicle.
Yes. Maha means big. Yana means vehicle, or sometimes path, way. The greater vehicle, or the big vehicle, literally. And this is a word, as we know, that describes the fourth and fifth schools of the Buddhist tradition. Okay. Oh, I just wanted to point out also, in the Ayast version, the way we designate a long vowel is by putting a long mark over it. These marks that you will see things underneath letters and above letters, are called diacritical marks. And they are what we use, at least in the Romanized transliteration system, to show the actual Devanagari letter that we're trying to represent, because the Roman alphabet does not have an equivalent for each Devanagari letter. So we'll talk about diacritical marks, and you'll see many as we go through this. Okay, let's try for the next slide. All right, here is another word that is often mispronounced, even by the mixed nuts. So how many long vowels does it look like to you guys are in this word?
One only.
Yes, one. So it's going to be all one beats until we come to the last syllable, which is going to have two beats. So I've written those colored lines under there so you can get a visual sense of where to go short and where to go long. But here's how this word sounds. Vipashyana. Vipashyana. Everybody say it with me.
Vipassana.
Very good. Now you notice that the word before had a Y-A-N-A in it, but we pronounce that yana because it means way or vehicle. This yana is not a separate word. It is part of push. So it's a participle form and it ends in a long So it's this word we can break down into ve and pashyana, a participle. So 3 shorts at the beginning and 1 long at the end. Let's say it again. Ve pashyana, ve pashyana. Yes, very good. All right. Okay. So there is a diacritical here, a diacritical mark that we have not yet seen. We saw the long macron over the at the end, but if you look at the S, you will see a short slanted dash. So that is a transliteration for one of the sibilants. Every time in Sanskrit you see a mark on an S, you can safely pronounce it shra. This particular S is actually a palatal S. So to be absolutely correct, you would say shra. But this is really hard to do in most of our languages. So we may soften it as we use it to just a regular shra. So vipashyana is a good way to pronounce this word. But it's really important to get the diacritical marks correct because it tells you exactly how to spell it in Devanagari.
Christina, can you say it again? The S with the palatal.
Yes, if I pronounce this with the proper hra sound, we would say vipashyana, vipashyana. We can let's try saying it with the palatal hra.
Vipassana. Vipassana.
Yes.
Vipassana. Vipassana. So the R is guttural and the S is palatal. So there's a move there, right?
They combine and they affect each other. Yes. Sometimes, like with R's and N's, we will actually write them differently depending on what comes before and what comes after. And again, this is what I mean when I say it's a sound-based language, because you actually change the way it's written sometimes, depending on how it sounds to a Sanskrit speaker. And someone is saying, you can't speak very fast if you're talking Sanskrit. I think if you do it for 10 or 20 years, you get used to it and then you speak faster. So, all right, I think that's all we have to say about Vipassana at the moment. But if you look at the very bottom, that's how it looks in Devanagari. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so you may have noticed something here, or you're about to notice it. Earlier, we learned how to draw the letter which somehow got out of order in this slide. It should be right next to the word letter, but PowerPoint does that sometimes. So do you see this symbol in the Devanagari above in those 2 words we just pronounced?
No, it's not written there directly, but the lines they indicate the long R.
Perfect, Julia. It is not written there in this way. It doesn't have this look. Julia correctly says that there are, I'm seeing 3 places where there's a single downstroke, and that does represent a long but where are all the short uhs?
They are included into the consonant letters.
Yes, very good. So any consonant there that does not have a long marker has an implied And let's go to the next slide. We don't see it, and again, the symbol is out of order in the PowerPoint. I apologize. We don't see the in the previous words because Devanagari is not an alphabet, even though I may have referred to it as an alphabet earlier. It is an abugida. And what is an abugida? It's very much like an alphabet, but it has the characteristic that, at least in the Devanagari abugida, every consonant is automatically attached to an So we know that is the most important sound in Sanskrit. And every consonant is attached to it because it's so important. It's the primal sound of life, you could say, certainly of Sanskrit. So we just don't bother to write it because we assume it is in the letter unless we have a mark that indicates to the reader that another vowel is being substituted. So we only mark the other vowels. And what are the vowels aside from Can anyone recite them? Hint, it's the alphabet song.
It's all the rest, right?
Yes.
The E, the U, the R, the R, the L. How do you the cerebral is easy R, but the dental li? Do you say li?
Lir.
Lir. Okay,
Lir. It
lir,
has a little bit of a R sound in it.
lir,
It starts with a L. It's very difficult for Chinese people.
R, lir. Okay.
Lir. And it's very rare, hardly occurs at all. So we're not going to worry about it too much. Okay, so any letter starting with a long an I, u, r, lir, a, I, o, ow, Those are all written. The only one that isn't written is the because it's automatically attached to every consonant. Okay, let me see. What else did I have to say? All right. So we're going to make a lot of assumptions about which letters are to be pronounced in the Devanagari. Let's have the next slide, please. Now here's a very famous one. Geshe always talks about this word. Who wants to pronounce this for me?
Ananda.
Not Ananda.
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 Perfect. That was a good one. Ananda.
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 Right. So the colored lines again help us know that the very first syllable, which is just is pronounced long, nanda. And the second syllable, nun, and the third syllable, da, are pronounced as short notes, quarter notes, nanda. So if you look at the Devanagari, we see the ayast at the top with the diacritical, so we know how to say it. But if we look at the Devanagari down below, what is the letter that I circled there?
The long
It's a long
Uh,
And why are we seeing an written with not just a downstroke?
Maybe because first.
Yeah, that's the reason. When it begins a word, and this is true of every vowel, you will see the full vowel character written out, whether it's long or short. But when a vowel, whether it's a or another vowel, is written inside a word, you will not see the full character written out, only at the beginning. And we will learn more about vowel markers as we go along. But when it starts a word, it is fully written out. And in this case, it's a long so we have the downstroke to mark the long vowel. And I realize, because I'm about to ask you what this word means, that we forgot to talk about what the previous word means. Vipassana. Who knows what vipassana means?
insights.
Yes, insight. It's the kind of flash understanding of Buddhist philosophy that you can get if you're a very good meditator and you meditate a lot. You will suddenly get an insight into some wonderful idea that you have been studying and understand its meaning more deeply. In fact, that word has two parts. Vi is a sort of prefix, and pashyana is a participle. And it's pashyana means seeing, as in I see. So it's an ing form of see, seeing. And vi, there, thank you. Vi actually means deeply. So literally, this word means seeing deeply. And we translate it usually as insight. Okay, great. Let's go back to Ananda. Nope, one more. Yeah. What does this word mean? Does anybody remember from some Geshe comments?
Super
Super.
bliss.
Well, it just means
Happy.
bliss. What was the second comment?
Someone who's very happy. Like
Who's very happy. Yes, exactly. And it is an adjective. So it doesn't have to be someone. You could have a blissful afternoon or, a blissful insight. But the reason it is bliss is because of that long So in this case, we see very intensely why it's important to pronounce Sanskrit correctly. This is because if you say Ananda, if you say Ananda, it means grief. So there's a big difference between Ananda, Ananda, and Ananda. One is bliss and one is grief. So it's very important to say Sanskrit correctly. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. Here is the word. Which word is this? Who can read the Devanagari?
Mahayana.
Very good. Mahayana. And I think we already went over this, but I want to emphasize that you're not going to see the written unless it's a long and then you won't see the full character. You will only see the downstroke, and that tells you pronounce it for 2 beats. So again, Mahayana. Everybody say Mahayana.
Mahayana. Mahayana.
Great. Okay, let's have the next slide. Okay, so let's practice. Here we have na kinchidasti tadvastu yadabhyasasya dushkaram tasman mardu vyat abhyasat sodavyapi mahavyatha. Right? This is a verse, chapter 6, verse 14, from a guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life. So let's break this down and let's say these words. Okay. Let's say the first one. Na.
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 Na. Second word is kin.
Kin.
Not keen.
Kin.
That's a long I. This is Put your tip of your tongue on that bump in the back of your mouth and say Na kinchid asti tad vastu. Chid
Kinchidasti.
tad vastu. Now that's the first half of this. It's the first quarter of this verse. Na kinchidasti tad vastu. Let's all say that. Na kinchidasti tad vastu.
Na kinchi asti tadvastuya.
Na kinchidasti tad vastu. All short vowels, yeah? No long markers anywhere. So let's say it one more time. Na All right, now second quarter is a little bit challenging because we have one long vowel in there. So we're going to say Yad abhyasasya dushkaram. Practice that with me. Yad abhyasasya dushkaram. Yad abhyasasya dushkaram. Good. And the next one, I'll say the third quarter, and then listen, and then we'll say it together. Tasman mardu vyad abhyasat. So there's a lot of long vowels in that one. And there's that very interesting vowel in the second word, which is So it's very easy to say it. People get upset when they see it, but no reason, because it's easy if you remember to say because we already learned that, right? It's a vowel. Yeah, not ra, it's Yeah, good. So let's say this quarter together. Tasma Good. Tasma Tasman Yadabhyasa. And the last bit is Sodavyapi Mahavyata. Sodavyapi Mahavyata. Sodavyapi Mahavyata. Sodavyapi Mahavyata. Great. Now let's try the next slide. Oh, but just quickly before we go back. The bottom two lines are the Devanagari. So just take a look at that. The top is the I asked, and the bottom is the same exact words in Devanagari. All right, now the next slide. This is what it means, which often helps us to understand what we're saying. There is nothing in the world which does not come easily if you make a habit of it. Make a habit, then, of bearing the small pains and thus endure the greater. It's a beautiful idea for our daily life from Master Shantideva. Let's go to the next slide. Oh, no. I think there's one before that. No, after that, after this. Oh, that's the next one. All right, I guess I skipped one. I was going to give you a slide that says something about the words. So let's go back to one more to the I asked of this verse and look at that word in, it's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Abhyasa. 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 Now this one says abhyasasya, but that's an ending. So the nominative singular, the more or less plain form of this verb is abhyasas. Abhyasa. And it's a word that means practice, right? And vastu, which is the sixth word, vastu. That's a word that means any existing thing. It literally means your residence, where you stay, but came to mean any existing thing. There are many synonyms in Sanskrit for that. Now in the second line, the second word, mardu, that's a word that means gentle or soft. And all the way at the end, we see maha, which we saw, the last word there, maha, we already had that, it means big. But vyata means distress or torment. And sodhavya is an adjective. Here it's connected with another word, api. But sodhavya it's a word that means to be borne, to be carried, to be endured. So if we go again to the next slide with the English, we see that we can more or less get some of the words. If you make a habit of it means if you practice it. So that would be abhyasa. And any existing thing is how the translator translated vastu. There is nothing in the world, any existing thing, because it says in the Devanagari, na, not any existing thing, right? So we're just seeing how the translation is beginning to occur. In the second verse, you can see that thus make a habit of bearing the small pains. So you bear them, sodavya, mrdu, softly or gently. So he's translated it here as small pains, but it's really saying make a habit of sweetly bearing. So you can see the difference between the literal meanings of some of these words and how the translator has more elegantly put them together. Okay. All right. So I think we won't have time to do the very last slide where I was going to ask you to practice writing the vowels. So if you wish to, and there's no homework in series 1, but if you wish to, we will have the slides up on, Marina, will they be on a Google Drive? I think they will be on a Google Drive. So you can look at this particular slide. These are all the vowels, and practice writing them if you wish. It's not required, but it's fun, and it will familiarize you with the Devanagari, which is one of the points of learning Sanskrit. So I thank you all for your time today. Are there any questions that anybody has burning? I see a couple in here, maybe. Marina will put the PowerPoint in, and I think the recording. Well, she'll put the PowerPoint in the Telegram chat, and we're going to temporarily keep the recordings on YouTube. We are in the middle of transitioning to a new wonderful worldview platform where you'll all be able to get an account where you can keep access to recordings and to PowerPoints and to other things that we may produce, but it's not quite ready yet. So Telegram chats and YouTubes will be the place to go and get these things. All right, I think I've gone, or I'm about to go slightly over. I thank you for your time. I invite any questions that you have. Just remember, there are no dumb questions. All questions are good, and we welcome them. And if you ask, you can be almost assured that somebody else has the same question, so they will appreciate your asking it. And I don't promise I know the answers to everything, but I will do my best. So thank you very much, and I hope I see you next week. Bye for
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Guruji.
you.
Thank you, Guruji. Thank you.
now. Okay, bye.
Thank you, teacher. Namaste.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you, Sugrana. Francisco. Thank you, everyone.